What happens when two of Hollywood's most outspoken personalities collide on live television with no script, no filter, and absolutely nothing to lose? The set of The View became a battleground that nobody saw coming when Jack Nicholson walked onto that stage with his signature sunglasses and that unmistakable grin. What started as a routine celebrity interview quickly spiraled into one of the most intense, unscripted moments in daytime television history. The tension was immediate, the exchanges were brutal, and by the end, Jack Nicholson did something that left the entire studio in stunned silence. Before we get into exactly what went down, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us which side you're on after you hear this whole story, because trust me, you're going to have an opinion. The moment Jack walked out, you could feel something was different. He wasn't doing his usual charming routine, wasn't flashing that famous smile to warm up the crowd. He sat down across from Whoopi with an energy that immediately put everyone on edge. The other hosts, Sunny, Sarah, Alyssa, and Joy, all seemed to sense it too. They exchanged glances, uncertain looks, like they could already tell this wasn't going to be the light. Promotional chat they had planned, Whoopi started things off the way she always does, direct and confident. She leaned forward slightly, looked Jack right in the eyes, and said, "So Jack, it's been a while since you've done the talk show circuit. What finally brought you out of hiding?" There was a slight edge to her voice, almost playful, but with something underneath it. Jack didn't answer right away. He adjusted his sunglasses, even though they were indoors, and let the silence hang there for just a beat too long. Then he said, "Well, Whoopi, I figured if I'm going to subject myself to questions I don't want to answer, might as well do it somewhere that doesn't pretend to be something it's not." The audience let out an uncomfortable laugh. That kind of nervous sound people make when they're not sure if what they just heard was a joke or an insult. Whoopi's expression didn't change much, but you could see her jaw tighten slightly. She's been in this business long enough to know when someone's testing her. She smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Oh, so we're starting like that, are we? I thought you Hollywood legends were supposed to have more charm than that." Jack tilted his head, and you could almost see the wheels turning behind those dark lenses. "Charm is what you use when you don't want to tell the truth. Whoopi, I thought you'd appreciate someone being real for once." That's when you could feel the entire energy in the studio shift. The other hosts went quiet. The audience stopped laughing. This wasn't banter anymore. This was something else. Sunny tried to jump in, clearly attempting to lighten things up. She said, "Well, Jack, we're all about keeping it real here, so let's talk about your new project. What made you want to come back to acting after all this time?" Jack barely glanced in her direction. He kept his focus on Whoopi. "I didn't come here to talk about a project. I came here because I was told this was a place where people speak their minds. So let's speak our minds." Whoopi leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms, and said, "All right, Jack, let's do that. Let's talk about how you've spent the last few years living in your mansion, enjoying your legacy, while the rest of us have been out here fighting battles, using our platforms to actually make a difference. What's that been like for you, watching from the sidelines?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Jack's face didn't move. He let the silence stretch out again, longer this time, until it became almost unbearable. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and said, "You think you're making a difference, Whoopi? You think sitting at this table, preaching to people who already agree with you, patting yourself on the back every afternoon, you think that's changing anything?" The gasp from the audience was audible. Sarah's eyes went wide. Joy looked like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Alyssa shifted in her seat, clearly uncomfortable. But Whoopi, she just stared at him. No emotion, no reaction, just a cold, hard stare. Then she said, very calmly, "At least I'm doing something, Jack. At least I'm showing up. Where have you been? What have you contributed to any conversation that matters in the last decade?" Jack's response was immediate. "I don't need to contribute to your conversations, Whoopi. I don't need to perform outrage for ratings. I don't need to pretend that having opinions on television is the same thing as having courage." That word courage, it landed like a slap. Whoopi's expression finally cracked. Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned forward, matching his posture. "You want to talk about courage? Let's talk about courage. Let's talk about how easy it is to sit back and criticize when you've never had to fight for a damn thing in your life. You walked into Hollywood as a white man with talent and charm, and the world opened up for you. Some of us had to kick down every single door. So don't you dare lecture me about courage." The audience erupted into applause, but Jack didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He just nodded slowly, like he was considering her words, and then he said, "You're right. I didn't have to fight the same fights you did, but that doesn't mean I'm blind, Whoopi. I see what this show is. I see what you've become, and I think you see it too, and that's why you're so angry right now." Whoopi stood up, just stood right up from her chair, and for a second, it looked like she might walk off the set entirely. The producers were probably losing their minds in the control room, but she didn't leave. She stood there looking down at Jack and said, "What exactly do you think I've become, Jack? Please, enlighten me. Tell me what I am." Jack took off his sunglasses. That was the moment everyone knew this wasn't a bit, wasn't a performance. He looked directly at her, and his voice dropped lower, more serious. "You've become safe, Whoopi. You've become predictable. You say what people expect you to say. You fight the fights people expect you to fight. And maybe that's fine. Maybe that's what this show needs to be. But don't act like it's brave. Don't act like it's dangerous, because it's not. It's comfortable." The silence that followed was deafening. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Whoopi's face was unreadable, somewhere between fury and something else, something that might have been hurt. Then she sat back down, slowly, deliberately, and when she spoke again, her voice was ice. "You know what, Jack? You're right about one thing. I am comfortable. I'm comfortable because I earned it. I'm comfortable because I survive things you can't even imagine. And if that makes me predictable to you, if that makes me safe, then I'll wear that badge with pride, because at least I'm still here. At least I'm still relevant. What are you?" Jack put his sunglasses back on. He leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. "I'm someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore, especially not on a show like this." Whoopi laughed, but it was bitter. "Then why are you here, Jack? Why did you even come?" He didn't answer right away. He looked around at the other hosts, at the audience, at the cameras, and then back at Whoopi. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. "Because I wanted to see if there was anything left of the person I used to respect. I wanted to see if you were still in there somewhere, underneath all this." He gestured vaguely at the set, at the table, at everything around them. That's when Whoopi's composure finally shattered. Her voice rose, sharp and cutting. "You don't get to do that, Jack. You don't get to waltz in here after years of silence and judge me. You don't get to question my integrity, my choices, my life. Who the hell do you think you are?" Jack's response was immediate and unflinching. "I'm the guy telling you the truth, Whoopi. I'm the guy saying what everyone else is too afraid to say. This show, this whole setup, it's theater. It's performance art disguised as activism, and deep down, you know it." The air in that studio was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi was staring at Jack like she was trying to see right through him, and Jack just sat there, completely unbothered, like he had all the time in the world. The other hosts were frozen. Joy finally tried to interject, her voice shaky. She said, "Okay, I think maybe we need to take a breath here and, maybe redirect this conversation." Jack turned to her, and even though his tone wasn't aggressive, it was firm. "No, Joy, we don't need to redirect anything. This is the most honest conversation that's probably happened at this table in years. Let it play out." Whoopi cut in before Joy could respond. "You want honest, Jack. Let's be honest. You came here with an agenda. You didn't come here to promote anything. You didn't come here to have a conversation. You came here to take shots at me, at this show, at everything we do. So let's stop pretending this is about truth. This is about your ego." Jack smiled, not his famous movie star smile, but something smaller, sadder almost. "My ego, Whoopi. My ego has been fed enough for 3 lifetimes. I don't need this. I don't need any of this. But you need this table. You need this audience. You need to be right every single day at this exact same time. And that's fine, but don't confuse need with purpose." Sunny jumped in then, her voice defensive and sharp. "That's not fair, Jack. Whoopi has used this platform to speak up for people who don't have a voice. She's talked about issues that matter, that affect real lives. What have you done with your platform?" Jack turned to Sunny, and his voice softened just slightly. "I've lived my life, Sunny. I've made my movies. I've made my mistakes. I've never pretended to be a hero. But I've also never pretended that talking about problems is the same as solving them. There's a difference between making noise and making change. And if you can't see that difference, then you're part of the problem too. Alyssa's face flushed red. You could see her trying to control her emotions, but she couldn't help herself. So what? We're all just useless to you. Everyone who tries to use their voice tries to speak up. We're all just performing. Is that what you're saying? Jack looked at her for a long moment. No, I'm saying that conviction without self-awareness is just self-righteousness. And this table, this show, it's drowning in self-righteousness. The audience was completely silent now. No applause, no gasps, just stunned, uncomfortable silence. Whoopi's hands were flat on the table, and you could see them trembling slightly. Whether from anger or something else, it was hard to tell. She spoke again, and this time her voice was low and controlled, but there was venom in every word. You talk about self-righteousness, Jack, but you're sitting here in your expensive clothes with your expensive life, judging people who actually show up every day and try. You're the most self-righteous person in this room right now, and you can't even see it. Jack nodded slowly, like he'd expected that response. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am. But at least I'm not pretending otherwise. At least I'm not wrapping my self-righteousness in activism and calling it virtue. You want to know what I see when I look at this show, Whoopi? I see a group of people who have convinced themselves that they're warriors when really they're just commentators. And there's nothing wrong with being a commentator. But don't lie to yourself about what you are. Sarah, who had been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. Her voice was softer than the others, almost pleading. Jack, why are you being so cruel? What did we do to you? What did Whoopi do to you? Jack's expression shifted then. The hardness in his face softened just a fraction. This isn't about cruelty, Sarah. This isn't personal. This is about honesty. Whoopi asked me what I think. She wanted me to speak my mind, so I'm speaking it. If that feels like cruelty to you, then maybe you need to ask yourself why the truth feels so harsh. Whoopi slammed her hand on the table, and the sound echoed through the studio. Don't you dare talk to her like that. Don't you dare turn this into some kind of philosophical lesson like you're the wise old man on the mountain. You came here to provoke. You came here to start something. So own it, Jack. Own what you're doing right now, instead of hiding behind this pretense of honesty. Jack took his sunglasses off again. And this time when he looked at Whoopi, there was something different in his eyes. Not anger, not smugness, but something closer to disappointment. I'm not hiding behind anything. And yeah, maybe I did come here to provoke something. Maybe I wanted to see if you'd actually engage. If you'd actually defend yourself without falling back on the same talking points you use every other day. And you know what? You haven't. Every response you've given me has been exactly what I expected. It's been safe. Whoopi's voice rose again. Safe? You think this is safe? You think sitting here and letting you attack me in front of millions of people is safe? You think putting up with your condescension and your insults is safe? Jack leaned forward again. Yes, Whoopi, I do. Because you know that no matter what I say, no matter how this goes, your audience will support you. They'll applaud you. They'll tell you that you won. You'll go home tonight and tell yourself that you stood up to the big bad movie star who tried to put you in your place. And tomorrow, you'll come back to this table, and everything will be exactly the same. That's safe. That's the definition of safe. Joy tried again to intervene, her voice desperate now. Jack, I really think we should move on. This is getting too heated, too personal. Jack didn't even look at her. He kept his eyes locked on Whoopi. It's not personal enough, Joy, that's the problem. Everything here is surface level. Everything is about the performance. When was the last time anyone at this table said something they weren't sure about? When was the last time anyone here admitted they were wrong, or confused, or didn't have an answer? You all speak with such certainty about everything, and that's not wisdom. That's arrogance. Alyssa's voice cracked slightly when she spoke. We're trying our best, Jack. We're doing the best we can with the platform we have. Jack finally looked away from Whoopi and turned to Alyssa. His voice was gentler now, but still firm. I know you are. And I'm not saying your intentions are bad. I'm saying your impact is limited because you've put yourself in a box. You've created an echo chamber where everyone agrees with you, where dissent is treated as an attack, where nuance goes to die. And Whoopi, she's the architect of that box. She built it, and now she's trapped in it. Whoopi stood up again, and this time there was no hesitation. She pointed at Jack. her fingers shaking. "Get out." "I'm serious, Jack. Get off my stage. You don't get to come here and tear me down like this. You don't get to disrespect me, disrespect this show, disrespect everything we've built. Get out." Jack didn't move. He just sat there, looking up at her calmly. "I'm not going anywhere, Whoopi. Not until we're done here." Whoopi's voice was almost a shout now. "We are done. This interview is over. Somebody get him out of here." But nobody moved. Not the producers, not the security, not the other hosts. Everyone was paralyzed, watching this unfold like a car crash they couldn't look away from. Jack stood up slowly, deliberately, and for the first time, he was the one looking down at Whoopi. "You can kick me out, Whoopi. That's your right. It's your show. But before I go, I want you to answer one question. Just one. And I want you to answer it honestly, not for the cameras, not for the audience, but for yourself." Whoopi's chest was heaving. She was breathing hard, her eyes blazing. "What question?" Jack's voice dropped to almost a whisper, but in the dead silence of that studio, everyone heard it. "Are you happy? With all of this, with everything you've built, with the person you've become, are you actually happy?" The question landed like a bomb. Whoopi's face went through a dozen different expressions in the span of a second. Anger, confusion, pain, defiance. Her mouth opened like she was going to answer, but nothing came out. The silence stretched on, impossibly long, unbearably tense. Then tears started forming in Whoopi's eyes, just the beginning of them, barely visible, but they were there. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely audible. "That's none of your business." Jack nodded slowly. "You're right. It's not, but the fact that you can't answer it, that tells me everything I need to know." He turned to walk away, but Whoopi grabbed his arm. Her grip was tight, desperate, almost. "Don't you walk away from me, Jack. Don't you ask me something like that and then just leave?" Jack looked down at her hand on his arm, then back up at her face. "What do you want me to say, Whoopi? What answer are you looking for?" Her voice was raw now, all the polish stripped away. "I want you to tell me why. Why did you really come here? What do you want from me?" Jack looked at Whoopi's hand, still gripping his arm, and something in his expression changed. The hard exterior cracked, just for a moment, and what came through was something almost vulnerable. He gently removed her hand from his arm, but he didn't let go right away. He held it for just a second, and when he spoke, his voice was different. Softer, more human. "I came here because I remember who you used to be, Whoopi. I remember when you were fearless. Not this packaged, calculated version of fearless that you sell every day at this table. When you said things that made people uncomfortable, including your own side. When you challenged everyone, not just the people it was safe to challenge." Whoopi pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself like she was suddenly cold. Her voice was shaky. "That person didn't survive, Jack. That person got torn apart. You have no idea what it's like to be a black woman in this industry. In this country, trying to have opinions, trying to exist in spaces that weren't built for you. That fearless person you remember, she got eaten alive. So, yeah, maybe I adapted. Maybe I found a way to survive that you don't approve of, but I'm still here. I'm still standing, and that counts for something." Jack's eyes softened, and for the first time since he sat down, he looked genuinely moved by something she said. "It does count for something. It counts for a lot. And I'm not trying to diminish what you've been through, what you've survived. But somewhere along the way, surviving turned into performing. And I think you can feel the difference, even if you won't admit it out loud." Whoopi's voice cracked. "What do you want me to do, Jack? You want me to blow up my life? Walk away from this? Become some kind of martyr for authenticity? I have people depending on me. I have a legacy to protect. I have responsibilities." Jack shook his head slowly. "I don't want you to do anything, Whoopi. This isn't about what I want. This is about whether you're okay with the trade you made. Because that's what it is, isn't it? You traded the chaos of being truly yourself for the stability of being what people expect. And maybe that was the right choice. Maybe it was the only choice. But you have to own it. You have to stop pretending that this version of you is the same as the woman you used to be." Sonny's voice cut through, defensive and fierce. "Why are you doing this to her? Can't you see you're hurting her? What gives you the right?" Jack turned to Sonny, and there was no anger in his face, just wariness. "I'm doing this because somebody needs to. Because she surrounded herself with people who will never tell her the truth. People who will applaud her no matter what she says, who will defend her no matter what she does. And that's not love, Sonny. That's not friendship. That's enabling. Sometimes the people who care about you the most are the ones willing to make you uncomfortable. Whoopi laughed, but it was bitter and broken. You don't care about me, Jack. You barely know me. We've crossed paths at a few parties, done a couple of events together over the years. That's it. So don't stand here and pretend this is some intervention from a concerned friend. This is ego. This is you wanting to feel superior, wanting to feel like you're above all of this. Jack was quiet for a moment, really considering her words. Then he spoke, and his voice was the most honest it had been all day. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is ego in this. Maybe I do feel superior sometimes. But that doesn't make what I'm saying wrong, Whoopi. And deep down, you know it. Sarah wiped tears from her eyes. I don't understand what you want from this conversation. Jack, what's the endgame here? You make Whoopi cry. You make us all feel terrible about ourselves. And then what? You leave and feel satisfied. Jack looked at Sarah, and his expression was almost apologetic. There is no endgame. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I'm not trying to win anything. I'm just tired, Sarah. I'm tired of watching people I used to admire become caricatures of themselves. I'm tired of watching this industry, this culture, reward people for playing it safe while punishing anyone who takes real risks. And yeah, maybe it's not my place to say any of this. Maybe I should have just stayed home. But I didn't. I'm here. And we're having this conversation whether anyone likes it or not. Joy spoke up, and her voice was surprisingly steady. You know what I think, Jack? I think you're projecting. I think you're the one who's unhappy. I think you're the one who feels like you've become irrelevant. And instead of dealing with that, you're coming after Whoopi because she's still here, still working, still mattering to people. This isn't about her at all. This is about you. Jack looked at Joy for a long moment, and then he smiled. Not a mocking smile, but something genuine. You might be right, Joy. There might be some truth to that. But even if this is about me, even if I'm projecting every insecurity I have onto Whoopi, does that make the questions invalid? Does that mean we shouldn't ask them? Whoopi sat back down heavily in her chair. She looked exhausted, drained of all the fight she'd had just minutes before. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. What do you want me to say, Jack? You want me to admit that I'm not who I used to be? Fine, I'm not. Nobody is. We all change. We all compromise. We all make choices that we have to live with. But I'm doing my best. Every single day, I come to this table and I try to say something that matters. I try to make a difference. Maybe it's not enough for you. Maybe it's not pure enough, or brave enough, or whatever standard you're holding me to, but it's what I've got. Jack sat back down across from her. The energy had shifted completely. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was something else, something more vulnerable. I know you're doing your best, and I'm not here to tell you that your best isn't good enough. I'm here because I wanted to know if the woman I used to respect was still in there somewhere, and she is. I can see her right now. She's sitting right in front of me, underneath all the armor, all the performance, all the protection. She's still there. Tears were streaming down Whoopi's face now, and she didn't bother to wipe them away. Then why does it feel like you're trying to kill her? Why does this feel like an attack? Jack's voice was gentle, because growth feels like death sometimes. Shedding old skin hurts. Admitting you've lost your way is painful, but it's the only way forward. Whoopi, you can keep doing what you're doing. You can keep showing up here every day, saying the things people expect you to say, being the person people expect you to be. And that's a valid choice. But don't pretend it doesn't cost you something. Don't pretend you're not paying a price. Alyssa spoke up, her voice small. What price is she paying, Jack? From where I'm sitting, she's successful, she's respected, she has a platform. What more could she want? Jack looked at Alyssa, then back at Whoopi. Peace? She could want peace. The kind of peace that comes from being fully yourself. From saying what you actually think, instead of what you think you should think. That kind of peace is worth more than any platform, any amount of respect. And Whoopi knows it. Look at her face. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. Whoopi covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook slightly, and for a moment it seemed like she might completely break down. But then she took a deep breath, pulled her hands away, and looked directly at Jack. Her eyes were red, her face was wet with tears. But there was something fierce in her expression. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I hate you for it. I hate that you came here and said all of this out loud. I hate that you made me feel this way in front of everyone. But you're right. The other hosts looked at each other, shocked. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Jack leaned forward. So, what are you going to do about it? Whoopi laughed. A real laugh this time, though it was still tinged with pain. I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. But I guess that's the first honest thing I've said all day, isn't it? Jack smiled. It is, and it's the best thing you've said too. Whoopi shook her head, still crying but also smiling now. I really do hate you right now. You know that. Jack nodded. I know. And that's okay. Hate is honest. Hate is real. It's better than the polite performance we started with. Sonny looked between them, confused. So what? You two are just okay now? After all of that, Whoopi wiped her eyes and let out a long breath. No, we're not okay. But maybe we're more honest than we were an hour ago. And maybe that's worth something. Jack stood up again, and this time Whoopi didn't try to stop him. He looked at her one more time. For what it's worth, Whoopi, I didn't come here to destroy you. I came here because I believe you're capable of more than this. And I hope someday you believe that too. Whoopi stood up and faced him. They were inches apart now, and the tension between them was still there. But it was different, less hostile, more human. Get out of here, Jack, before I change my mind and actually throw you off this stage. Jack put his sunglasses back on, and that famous grin finally appeared. There she is. There's the Whoopi eye, remember? And with that, he turned and walked off the stage. No goodbye to the other hosts, no wave to the audience. Just a straight walk to the exit. The camera stayed on Whoopi, standing there alone at the table, tears still on her face. Watching him leave, nobody who watched that interview will ever forget it. So hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Do you think Jack crossed the line? Or do you think Whoopi needed to hear everything he said?